everyone. I'm Joe, that's Jeremy, and we're back for another great episode of the Cup of Joe show. We've got a lot to talk about. We saw a movie, we've got the box office, and we've got some movies coming out this weekend. But you know that. You know that because that's the formula, that's what you guys love, and that's what we give you. Alright, so we're going to start with The Purge: Anarchy. Yes, we did go to see this film. I don't know what we said about it last week, but I'm pretty sure we said that we weren't going to see a film this week. So, alright, this was the sequel to The Purge, which starred Ethan Hawke. That was the first one, and this one starred Frank Grillo and a bunch of other people. So this was better than the first, and at least that's the...
Did you see the first?
A lot of parts of it.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So, as a whole, it was better than the first, and that seems to be the general consensus as well, with everyone. So it's... but the thing that needs to be talked about, though, is really its biggest issue, its biggest flaw, where kind of all its problems start. Its nucleus, if you will, and I shouldn't have used that word because I can't say it, is that it doesn't know what kind of film it wants to be. If it had a focus, it would be better. It would definitely be better. It has elements of horror. It's action. It's a thriller. It's dramatic. It's just it throws intelligent political themes at you and doesn't explain them, and it throws just all these themes at you and just throws them out. Doesn't actually delve into the details of them. So it basically just kind of leaves you with, what kind of movie are you? And that's really that's its biggest flaw. I really liked Frank Grillo, but the issue was because of the poor writing. I mean, his character really had no development, or at least very limited development. We didn't really get to learn that much about him. And it's just it was a mess. To me, it was very entertaining. So I didn't regret seeing it, but overall, this movie it was just a mess.
Yeah, I agree for the most part. Frank Grillo definitely carried the movie, and without him there, it just wouldn't have been the same. But yeah, it's just The Purge: Anarchy tried too hard. It was reaching beyond itself, and if it just realized what kind of movie it was, that would have been fine. I would have been fine. I think that the concept of The Purge is ridiculous and insane enough that people are sold on just that premise. You don't need to explain it and have all this political nonsense too. And then when you try to put that in there and try to make sense of something that's so absurd, it doesn't work. So I think if the movie just didn't have all the political stuff and just was just an over-the-top bloodbath that, The Purge would be, then that would be a more entertaining movie, and I think that's what people want to see out of this concept. At the other end of the spectrum, I guess maybe if they had done the political things better and maybe gone into a lot more of the backstory, which they might do in The Purge 3, I don't know, that would have been better if they had done all that stuff more intelligently. But as it was, it just straddled this weird line between cheesy over-the-top action flick and kind of political thriller thing, and just neither one worked. So as you said in your review, the movie itself was anarchy.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, yeah, and that's you could find that full review on cupofjoe.com along with my rating of the film. But honestly, yes, there's going to be a Purge 3 because these are such low budget films that there's most likely going to be a Purge 3 because it'll make money, and that's what drives people. So I just suggest get rid of the dumb horror cliche. Stop trying to be a horror movie like you're not. You're a thriller. Just be a thriller, okay? Get rid of jump scares and like ridiculous. Like you don't have to be a horror movie, all right? And just figure out what you want to be. You know, have a plan. Like you don't have one Purge franchise, so figure it out, and you'll be just fine. You'll be just fine anyway because your budget is so low. But anyway, that's our thoughts. I wouldn't, I don't know if I would suggest I wouldn't suggest to see it because it's a mess. It's a mess. So let's move on into the box office, and Jeremy will take it away.
Alrighty, so I'll start with number 5 as we always do, and that spot last weekend went to Transformers: Age of Extinction. That fell a decent 40% to $9.9 million and has a total of $227 million. Now, in the weekdays since the show today, Age of Extinction has surpassed Days of Future Past to become the highest grossing movie of the summer, which means that Maleficent did not have even one day of having the Summer Crown, and I'm very thankful for that fact. So, Age of Extinction there's like a 99% chance it's going to win the Summer Crown at this point. Should finish with like 245 or so. I can't imagine anything beating it. I can't see Guardians of the Galaxy getting up to that range, and it's pretty much the only movie that would have even the chance to. Okay, number 4. That went to Sex Tape, and that debuted to $14.6 million. That's just not good. In a year when we've seen R-rated comedies like Neighbors and 22 Jump Street XL, this is obviously quite a bit lower than those. I think it just didn't look funny, it didn't look appealing, and people, maybe they're just burnt out on R-rated comedies at the moment. I don't know, but either way. Yeah, and the budget was $40 million, so this is going to lose money. Mm-hmm. Number 3, Planes, Fire and Rescue, opening of 17.5. That's a couple million below the first Planes, which shouldn't have even been released in theaters, but Disney wants to make money, and these movies are toy commercials. I mean, so is Transformers, but Transformers is cool. But, last year, the first Planes ended up having pretty decent legs, mostly due to lack of competition. So, the same is definitely possible for Fire and Rescue, so but its budget is $50 million, so I still don't really think it's gonna. I mean, the movie's not gonna make any money. The toys and such, but not that great for the movie. Okay, number 2 spot was the debut of The Purge: Anarchy, and that opened to $29.8 million. That's a few million below the opening of the first Purge, but that's still a really, really good number because the first Purge was terrible. People hated it. It fell like 76% in its second weekend. It went from 34 million to 8 million in its second weekend. That's impressively awful. It's just so for The Purge: Anarchy to actually retain that much of its audience is very impressive. I thought it was going to open to like 15 million. Barely matched the first one's opening weekend in its entire run. So I think that debut is really good. And honestly, maybe the filmmakers here unlocked like a brilliant new strategy. Like, let's have a really interesting concept. Let's not really use that concept. Have people be pissed, and then we're going to make a sequel where we actually use that concept better so that people will still come out for the sequel. So, I'm curious if we'll see that happen again with anything else. But I think the reception to The Purge Anarchy is significantly better than the first, so I think it should easily outgross the first one. Could be headed for like a 75 million total, which is pretty good. But The Purge was not enough to stop our number one film, which was on top for the second straight weekend. That is Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. That was down 50% to 36.3 and has a total of 139.2. That's a pretty solid hold. It's about on par with the hold of Rise of the Planet of the Apes. So considering it opened bigger, that's a good sign. It's got a pretty strong total through 2 weekends. I'm happy to see it doing well. Unfortunately, it does face a lot of competition this weekend and next weekend, so we'll see how it fares against that. But I would say worst case scenario at this point, it's heading toward about 215 million total, which is pretty good.
And there's your box office, brought to you by Jeremy Evans. That can also be found at cupofjoe.com. I think another thing that should be mentioned about The Purge Anarchy, which we've already spent way too much time on, is that the marketing campaign, they got out there that this is different, we've changed,
it's in the streets!
Yes, we've given you what you wanted, and I mean, it actually did enough to pull me out and force him to go as well. So maybe that's what happened with people. It added that action type deal to it, where they added the Frank Grillo character and him actually going out in action in the streets, and that brings your action adventure people like me that just are entertained by stuff like that. I mean that brings that more out. Whereas I feel like the first Purge just it targeted the horror audience more so because it was a home invasion film. So I think that with this second one, it actually pulled in a small but a different audience than from the first one. So I thought that was intelligent. But again, make changes to your film. For the next Purge next year, however close it is away. We all survived it. Stay safe.
Oh, good.
All right. Yeah. So, inside Purge joke. That's an inside Purge joke. If you guys have seen it, I'm sure you haven't. But anyway, all right. Let's move on to the movies that are coming out this weekend.
Yes. Usually movies come out on weekends.
Yes.
Sometimes they debut on Wednesdays. Rarely on Thursdays. Extraordinarily rarely on Tuesdays. Never on Mondays. That doesn't... I'm sure it's happened at some point. Some movie has opened on a Monday. But that's, really rare. They never open on Sundays. Extraordinarily rarely on Saturdays.
I have it open now.
Oh,
we're good. You know what? All right, back to The Purge. 2 more seconds. The Purge should open on the day of the Purge. That would be cool.
Yes.
Although it might be terrible for marketing reasons and making money reasons, but it should open on the day of the Purge that the movie is actually set.
The Purge in the movies takes place in March.
Yes.
So it'd make more sense to release it in March or have the date be in July.
Right. I think last year I think it came out in June last year.
Okay.
So it came out in July this year, which is like a year. But
Yeah.
if you're gonna do that, make it a year, okay? Just put it right on the spot.
Seriously.
And set it in, if it's July, set it in July. I mean, let's get on the writing team and marketing team of The Purge. We're gonna fix it. We're gonna make it a good movie. All right. So, we've got 2 movies of note coming out this weekend. All right, let's just start with Lucy. We've got ScarJo in the leading role, in an interesting looking thriller.
Yes. It's directed by Luc Besson, or is it Beeson? Something like that. He's the guy behind the Taken franchise. The first one of which is very enjoyable. But other than that, those two movies, he hasn't really had a whole lot of success. But Lucy definitely looks interesting. It continues to perpetuate the myth that humans only use 10% of their brain power, which is, by the way, a complete and total myth. But for the purposes of a movie, it's still an interesting idea. And, we've seen things like this before in Limitless, and I'm sure other things that I can't think of right now. But anyway, it's a cool idea. Scarlett Johansson apparently gets some, or Lucy, rather, her character gets some drug thing in her, and it allows her to unlock more of her brain. She gets, telekinesis and all these crazy powers and stuff, and then just, things go down. So I'm pretty sure that's the movie. I don't know if the movie's going to try to strive to be anything more than just cool, crazy stuff happening. I didn't really get that vibe from the trailers or previews, but, looking at, the box office tracking and stuff, it looks like Lucy's headed toward, a pretty strong opening weekend, quite possibly over 30 million, so.
And it's ripe. It's ripe at Rotten Tomatoes. It's at 60%. So it's hanging in there. We're going to call it ripe. Sorry, Rotten Tomatoes, if you're watching this. I don't know, because I feel like 75% and over is fresh.
Yeah.
But this is just ripe. All right, so yeah, it could be interesting. I actually think this movie's not going to be good. Honestly, I think it's just going to kind of fall flat. But it's getting decent reviews. It has an interesting concept, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. Next we've got Hercules, which actually has a 63% at Rotten Tomatoes. It's ripe. I actually thought these movies were going to be horribly reviewed, both of them. So it's actually refreshing to see that they're actually doing pretty well. I think this is great for Hercules because we already know what we're going to see going into it, and judging by these reviews, they succeeded in what they're doing, and it's going to be a nice little entertaining film. Mm-hmm. So I'm pleased, and I would definitely see it for its entertainment value.
Yeah, Hercules is The Rock, jacked impossibly, and just doing crazy action stuff. Fighting dudes, fighting the Hydra monster, and all that good stuff. So yeah, it seems like it's exactly what it wants to be. And if I were a woman, I would be very into The Rock eye candy. I'm not. So Lucy definitely wins in the eye candy department, but that only goes so far. That said, Hercules is clearly going to do a lot better than The Legend of Hercules, which came out earlier this year, and I'm sure most of you don't even know existed, but it starred the one dude from Twilight. So, yeah, Hercules should do much better than that and could probably open to 25-ish.
Right. Kellen Lutz. Don't act like you don't know his name. Gosh.
I know.
Dude from Twilight.
He played Emmett Cullen. I know.
Exactly.
I know.
So, and something I just want to touch on really quickly. Look, Guardians of the Galaxy has on 100% at Rotten Tomatoes right now. That is coming out next weekend. But I just want to touch on that.
Is the consensus up already?
The consensus is actually up, interestingly enough. Huh. But it only has 25 reviewers.
Oh, okay.
But 25 reviewers at 100% is serious business. This movie is going to be really good, apparently, according to the reviews. I mean, nice. That's going to be around the 90% range, you would think.
Yeah.
So, I'm very excited. You should be too. And but we'll talk about it more next week. So have a good week. We'll see you next week.